Hi, I'm Glen Johnson, here to answer your questions brought to you by LG. The most memorable FA Cup moment probably be the games that we all used to see with Arsenal and United. Not one bit springs to mind. I just remember the fierce battles, between Vieira and Keane. So I'd go with one of those. The thing I remember most winning it with the FA Cup with Portsmouth was the fact that at the start we wasn't taking it too seriously. You usually expect one of the big guns to make their way to the final, and we just took every game as it came and was enjoying it. And then there's a few big sort of shocks. I think Barnsley were the team knocking everybody out at the time. So we just kind of cruised our way to the semi-final, and that was the first time we had the toughest game, obviously, against United. And then when we get Cardiff in the final, of course, we fancied ourselves. One of my favourite Harry stories would be we had a home game against Aston Villa on a Saturday, and this was during our FA Cup run, and we had a couple of good results, and a few of the lads wanted to go to Cheltenham on a Thursday, and yeah, me included. And obviously, he got training a couple of days before a game, and he let us all go, which weren't supposed to be a day off, and he was sending us a few bets throughout the day, which were all good fun. And then, to be fair, the reason we was all so happy at the weekends, we ended up winning the game 2-0 and nothing was said. But usually no other manager would let you have a Thursday off if you're playing at home on a Saturday. This year's final between the young managers, I think Chelsea will do it. I just think, I like what Arteta's doing at Arsenal, but I think Lamps has got the better team, and you've got players there that have been winning things for years, so I think they'll have more experience, and I think they'll get the job done. So my favourite England player growing up would have been Alan Shearer. In terms of just watching him as a young kid, the goals he scored always seemed to be important goals, and you always fancied him when he got in front of goal. But in terms of favourite England player I played with, I'd probably say Gerrard. I know it sounds mad because I played with him for 7 years with Liverpool, but I think with England it had a bit of a different spice, and the fact that we was with different lads as well, it didn't feel the same as Liverpool, and he was just as dominant at international level as he was domestic. So yeah, I'll go with Stevie. If I was an England manager, to get the most out of the lads, I think I would have just made it very relaxed. There's a lot of times with some England managers where the manager comes under such big pressure by the media and the press that they sort of go with a safe option as opposed to the best option. And I think what I mean by that is the lads get picked for England based on their club form, and their club form, they're staying at home with their family the night before a game or seeing their friends throughout the week. So if I was the England manager, I'd introduce that sort of thing more often, in terms of having maybe guests into the hotel, let them have a bit more downtime so they don't feel like they're in camp as much, and let the performances happen. Yeah, during my England career, I think the manager that was probably speculated the most was actually Harry Redknapp. A lot of the time people go for the big names, but I think Harry was performing very well. Whether he actually wanted the job or not, I don't know. But I think he would have been one of the guys that I reckon could have got a lot more out of the players. Yeah, I think it's super important to have other interests outside of football, because there's so much spotlight on the games or what you do and how you look after yourself that it's natural to be interested in other sports or other businesses and whatever. So I think, yeah, and it's also downtime where you can do your training, of course reflect on games or training sessions, but then put the football away and have a few hours to yourself. I think it's healthy. So my story about how I became professional is a bit random, to be fair. So my mates were playing for the school team at primary school level, and I went with them just because I was going around my mate's house after school. So if I left early, I wouldn't have got a lift. And then I was on the bench and he brought me on, and I scored about 4 goals in about 5 minutes. So the PE teacher said to my mum that he's actually quite good, you might want to get him into a team. And then my mum just took me to a local team. She read the local newspaper and it said that a local team needed players. So she took me down, and I remember the guy sitting me down saying, like, what position do you play? And I was like, I don't know. So as every manager does, he was like, we'll go up front and let's see what happens. And then I scored 4 in the first game, 6 in the second game. And then Paul Senior, West Ham scout, was at the second game. So he gave my mum the business card and then I went to trials. And that was it, and then that was the start of it. I think it is tough to get scouted. More so back then, to be honest. I think nowadays, all the clubs are scouting everywhere. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for kids, but they just need to sort of, it's about timing. So there's enough scouts out there, but you need to be in the right place at the right time. But I'm sure if a young kid's good enough, the word travels now. So the scouts will find out a lot easier than they would have done in the past. My funniest teammate would probably be Peter Crouch. We spent a few years together over our careers, done a lot of travelling together, a lot of socialising together, and yeah, there's some funny moments, but the stories that are coming to my head I can't say on camera. My advice to young kids now trying to play or make it as pro would be just mainly hard work and focus, dedication. There'll be a lot of challenges in the younger days and distractions, but you've got to try and stay single-minded a little bit and you've got to be the hardest working nearly every day. I probably enjoyed the period most of my career when I went on loan to Portsmouth. Fortunate enough to win a few medals with Chelsea previous, but the year before I went on loan I didn't play as much. So for me it's just about getting back out in the park and enjoying my football again. And I couldn't have asked for a better group of lads to walk into, because there's probably 15 genuine good lads in that dressing room which you just don't get anymore. And we all made the time to socialise off the pitch. We pretty much went out together every single week, and I think that relationship went into the performances on a Saturday, which is why we finished 6th in the league and won the FA Cup. My role models growing up were Les Ferdinand and Marcel Desailly. And it's funny because now I can see it and I ended up playing with them both. So that was a great moment for me. But in terms of moulding my game on someone, it was a bit of Les Ferdinand, but then I started to enjoy watching Cafu play. So I don't think I could pick one player, I could probably pick about 10. And I just tried to pick the best bits out of everyone and create me. My favourite moment in my career was obvious really, in terms of probably my first debut. But then overall, across the course of the career, I'd probably say lifting the Premier League with Chelsea. I was fortunate enough to have a few good moments, but I'd say winning the Premier League is right up there. Toughest player I ever played against, I'd go for Ryan Giggs. I don't think he was the best individual I played against, but it was more about the timing, in the sense that when we played against United at that time, he was in his prime and I was a young kid learning the game. And the United side at the time was a joke. They had like the best player in the world in nearly every single position, so it was almost impossible to get near any of them, and I think that's why it seemed harder to play against Giggs, I'd say. The most memorable goal I've ever scored would definitely be the goal for Portsmouth against Hull. We actually had a corner, I was defending around the halfway line, ended up getting involved with the attack, chest and volley, and yeah, it was one of those moments, as soon as it left my foot, I thought it had a chance. I knew I was a long way out, but I knew I caught it well. Yeah, and luckily the keeper couldn't get near it and we all ran off celebrating. The club I probably wished I'd got the chance to play for, I'd say would be Barcelona. I think just because it's such an iconic club and it don't matter who anyone supports, they always got an eye on Barca. You know, I think they've probably been one of the best teams and biggest clubs for, well, as far back as I can remember, really. The best manager I've played under, I'd go for Benitez. A lot of people seem surprised when I say that, but I think it's just because I like the way he went about his business. There's a lot of managers that try and befriend the players, there's some that don't, there's some that flirt in the middle, and Rafa didn't try to be your friend at all, but you could tell he had a soft side to him, and he would be quite personal at certain times. But the main reason would be he would know exactly how to set you up in terms of if you had a tough European game coming, he would know everything there is to know about the opponents, and he would set our team up to cause them as most problems as possible. Yes, I did want to return to West Ham, and it came close. When I was at Stoke at the end, it did come close, but loads of things happen in football, and sometimes it don't come off. But yeah, look, I would have loved to. Obviously, I worked hard from the age of 10 years old to play for West Ham, and unfortunately, for whatever circumstances, didn't get to last too long in the first team. I would have loved to. It did come close, but not close enough. Not really. I didn't have too many pre-match sort of superstitions or anything like that, really. A few of the guys did, in terms of some guys wouldn't touch a football before the warm-up, or people wouldn't put their boots on until the last second of walking out the door. I've seen some strange stuff over the years, but to be fair, I never wanted to get into all that stuff, because then I thought I'd just drive myself mad, you know, worrying about stuff that I thought isn't important. So no, I used to be super relaxed and chill out and just try and enjoy the game of football, really. Yeah, in my early playing days I did play in a few different positions. I actually signed for West Ham as a striker, and I only went to centre-half during a game because the centre-half got injured, and I was the first one to offer my hand to say, oh, we'll go and play centre-half, and I played really well, and the manager was like, oh, maybe we should look to do that again. And then from that day I stayed there. I played a little bit in midfield, but then when I got to the first team, as a 17-year-old, I didn't think West Ham wanted to, you know, put a young kid out at centre-half. Obviously it's a key position, so they sort of put me at right-back to sort of see how I got on, and then that seemed to suit as well. So I've played a few different positions.